Emma woke up before sunrise, her mind buzzing with nervous energy. Today was her first real assignment at the Navy base, and though she had been briefed on her tasks, she still felt uncertain. She had been assigned to assist in the rifle bay, a place she had only seen from a distance during her orientation. The smell of gun oil, polished metal, and the faint tang of cleaning solvents filled her memory from that brief tour, and now she was about to experience it fully. As she walked toward the rifle bay, she felt the early morning chill against her skin. The base was quiet at this hour, except for the faint hum of machinery and the distant footsteps of other early risers. Emma adjusted her uniform, making sure everything was neat and in place. She knew that appearance mattered here, even if her role was just assisting. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves, and reminded herself that she was capable. When she entered the rifle bay, the first thing that hit her was the noise. Metal clinking, brushes scrubbing, and the quiet murmur of soldiers talking in low, focused voices filled the room. Rows of rifles rested on benches, each one meticulously organized. Soldiers, some in full gear, worked methodically, disassembling parts, scrubbing them clean, and carefully placing them back together. It was a world of precision and discipline, a world that seemed both intimidating and fascinating to Emma. She moved to her assigned workstation, which had a neatly laid-out kit of cleaning supplies, brushes, oils, cloths, and tools for adjusting small parts. The first task was simple, but every step required attention to detail. She began by wiping down a rifle barrel, her hand shaking slightly as she held it. She reminded herself to follow the instructions she had memorized. Start from the chamber, move to the barrel, then the stock. The process had to be exact. Even a small mistake could be costly in a military setting, she thought. Emma noticed some of the soldiers glancing at her. She felt a wave of self-consciousness. She was new here, and the veterans had likely seen many people come and go. She tried to focus, ignoring the occasional curious stare. Still, she couldn't help noticing one figure who stood out from the rest. A Navy SEAL was watching her from across the bay. He was tall, fit, and moved with a quiet confidence that seemed to command the room without a word. His eyes, sharp and observant, followed her movements as she worked. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had been told that SEALs were elite and exacting, and now she felt like she was under a microscope. Trying to calm herself, Emma took a step back and reviewed her technique. She carefully disassembled the rifle, laying out each part on the bench in order. She wiped down the barrel, oiling it lightly, then moved to the trigger mechanism. Her hands were more steady now, but she could feel her heartbeat in her chest. She repeated each motion slowly, deliberately, ensuring that no part was missed or mishandled. As she worked, she overheard bits of conversation around her. Soldiers talked about drills, upcoming missions, and maintenance tips. The language was precise, almost like a code. Emma tried to pick up on their rhythm, letting it guide her hands as she continued cleaning. Every now and then she caught the SEAL's gaze again. It wasn't judgmental exactly, but it was intense. She felt both nervous and strangely motivated. Time seemed to stretch. Hours could have passed, or maybe only minutes. Emma became immersed in her task, losing herself in the careful motions. She had cleaned rifles before in training, but this was different. These were real weapons held by experienced soldiers, and now her hands were responsible for their care. She thought about how each rifle had been used in training exercises, perhaps even in real operations. The thought added weight to her task, but also a sense of importance. Around her, the rifle bay hummed with quiet activity. A few soldiers moved to different benches, checking each other's work. The room smelled of polished metal and clean oil, a sharp but familiar scent that made her feel oddly at home. Emma's initial fear began to shift into focus. She realized that if she stayed calm and attentive, she could complete her task successfully. Each brushstroke, each wipe, each careful adjustment mattered. Then something unexpected happened. The SEAL she had noticed earlier stepped closer to her workstation. Emma froze, unsure of what he intended. He didn't speak immediately. Instead, he placed a rifle gently into her hands. It was heavier than she expected, but balanced. Emma instinctively held it with both hands, careful not to drop it. The SEAL took a step back and crossed his arms, his eyes still on her. He didn't say a word, but his expression conveyed something powerful: trust. Emma felt a surge of panic mixed with excitement. She had never held a rifle like this under such scrutiny. Every nerve in her body felt alive. She remembered her training, remembered what she had learned about handling weapons safely. Slowly, she began to inspect it, carefully following the steps she had practiced countless times in class. Her hands shook slightly at first, but she forced herself to breathe deeply and focus. She checked the chamber, cleaned the barrel, and examined every part. The seal watched silently, allowing her space to work, but Emma felt the pressure. This was no longer just a cleaning task. It was a test of composure, precision, and attention to detail. She realized that she could rise to the challenge if she stayed calm and methodical. Other soldiers noticed the interaction, but no one interrupted. The rifle bay seemed to hold its breath as Emma worked. She moved deliberately, carefully, making sure each step was exact. She could hear her own heartbeat, steadying with each careful motion. The initial fear was still there, but it was being replaced with concentration and determination. By the time Emma finished the initial cleaning, she felt a small but significant sense of accomplishment. She had held the rifle with care, followed every step correctly, and maintained her composure under the watchful eye of an elite soldier. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel proud, even though she knew the day was far from over. The seal finally nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement that she had done well so far. Emma's heart lifted. It wasn't a huge gesture, but it meant a lot. She had survived the first real test of her skills in the rifle bay, and she had earned a small measure of respect. As she carefully placed the rifle back on the bench, she felt a mixture of relief and excitement. This was just the beginning. Today would teach her more than she had ever imagined, and Emma realized that she was capable of more than she had believed. The rifle bay, once intimidating, now felt like a place of learning, growth, and possibility. She took a deep breath and prepared for what was coming next, ready to face the challenges ahead with focus, respect, and determination. Emma felt a strange mix of pride and nervousness as she watched the seal step back from her workstation. The faint nod he had given her moments ago still burned in her mind like a small spark of encouragement. She knew that this was only the beginning, that the real test had yet to come. The rifle bay, once intimidating, now felt like a place where she could prove herself. But proving herself to a Navy SEAL? That thought made her heart pound harder. She took a deep breath and returned to her task, carefully arranging the cleaning supplies back on the bench. Every brush, cloth, and tool had its place, and she made sure nothing was out of order. Organization, she remembered, was as important as precision in handling weapons. Soldiers relied on order. Mistakes could happen when things were scattered or neglected. She reminded herself to stay calm and focus on the details. The seal moved slightly closer, observing silently. Emma felt his eyes on her and knew she had to maintain her composure. Her hands were steady now, but her mind raced with questions. Would she meet his expectations? Would she make a mistake that could ruin this moment? The pressure was intense, yet it pushed her to concentrate harder. "Show me you can handle it," the seal finally said in a quiet voice, breaking the silence. It wasn't a command, but a challenge. Emma nodded, her throat dry, and lifted the rifle once again. She checked it carefully, step by step. Chamber, barrel, stock, magazine. Each part received her full attention. Her movements were slow, deliberate, and precise. Every muscle in her body seemed to focus solely on the task at hand. At first, she hesitated when she encountered a small component she had seen before, but never handled in this context. Her fingers fumbled slightly and she felt a surge of panic. She glanced up at the seal, expecting disappointment. Instead, he simply tilted his head and watched. There was no criticism, no scolding, just quiet observation. Emma realized that he wanted to see how she would respond under pressure, whether she could recover from a mistake without losing control. Taking a deep breath, Emma reminded herself of her training. She focused on the process, not the fear. Carefully, she adjusted the part, ensuring it fit perfectly. Her hands shook slightly, but she persisted. Slowly, the rifle began to feel lighter in her hands. As though her confidence was growing with each careful motion, she felt a small smile creep onto her face, hidden under her focus, a sign that she was beginning to believe in herself. Time seemed to stretch in the rifle bay. The rhythmic sounds of brushes and clinks of metal surrounded her, creating a quiet, focused environment. Other soldiers moved around her, but none interfered. Emma felt like the center of attention, yet supported by the silent respect of those around her. The seal's calm presence reminded her that confidence was earned through focus, patience, and careful action. She continued inspecting and cleaning the rifle. With each step, she felt more in control. She oiled the barrel, carefully removed residue from the chamber, and checked the trigger mechanism. Each motion had to be precise, and she was learning to trust her instincts. She realized that fear could be transformed into careful attention if she allowed herself to focus fully. Suddenly, she noticed a small misalignment in one of the rifle's components. Her heart jumped. If she didn't fix it, the rifle wouldn't function properly. Emma paused, examining the piece carefully. She could feel her pulse in her fingers as she adjusted it with delicate precision. A tiny click indicated it was secure. Relief washed over her. The SEAL's gaze remained steady, but now there was a subtle shift, a hint of acknowledgement that she had corrected the issue herself. As she worked, Emma began to notice the rhythm of the rifle bay. It was almost like a dance, each soldier moving in sync with their tasks, every sound and movement coordinated. She realized that she was starting to fit into this rhythm, finding her own place among the professionals. Confidence grew with every careful action, every small success. The SEAL finally spoke again. "Keep going. Take your time. Precision matters more than speed," he said. His voice was calm but firm, carrying authority without pressure. Emma nodded and continued, her mind fully immersed in the process. She was learning that discipline was not just about following orders. It was about understanding the importance of every action, no matter how small. Emma worked on the rifle for what felt like hours, though it was probably less. She carefully reassembled it, double-checking each part. The SEAL watched closely, occasionally stepping slightly to the side to give her space, but never interfering. She realized that this was more than just a test of skill. It was a lesson in trust. He had given her responsibility, and he expected her to rise to it. Finally, the rifle was fully cleaned and reassembled. Emma placed it gently on the bench and stepped back. She felt exhausted but proud. Her hands were slightly sore, her mind buzzing with focus and adrenaline. But she had done it. She had faced the pressure, managed her fear, and completed the task with precision. The SEAL examined the rifle closely, moving methodically from one end to the other. He checked the chamber, the trigger, the barrel, and the stock. Emma held her breath, waiting for his reaction. Then, after a few tense moments, he nodded once. It was a small gesture, but to Emma it felt monumental. She had earned his acknowledgement. "Good work," he said simply. His tone was not boastful or loud, but it carried weight. In the rifle bay, respect was earned through action, not words. Emma realized that she had taken a step forward, not just in learning to handle a weapon, but in understanding responsibility, trust, and composure. Other soldiers who had been watching began to nod quietly, showing silent approval. Emma felt a sense of belonging she had not expected. She was still new, still learning, but for the first time she felt that she could meet the expectations of this environment. She understood that trust was powerful, and that when someone placed confidence in you, it could inspire growth and courage beyond what you thought possible. Emma carefully cleaned up her workstation, putting brushes and cloths back in their designated spots. She looked around the rifle bay, taking in the organized chaos, the focused energy, and the quiet dedication of everyone present. This place, once intimidating, now felt like a classroom where each action was a lesson and each task carried meaning. As she left the rifle bay for a short break, she felt a new sense of confidence. Today had been more than a lesson in cleaning weapons. It had been a lesson in patience, responsibility, and the power of quiet trust. She realized that she had grown in ways she had not expected, and that she could face challenges with focus and determination. For the first time, Emma felt that she belonged in this environment, even if only in a small way. The SEAL's silent guidance and trust had shown her that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act responsibly despite it. She knew that there would be more tests, more challenges ahead, but for now she had proven something important to herself. Emma returned to the rifle bay after her short break, feeling a mix of excitement and determination. She knew that the next part of her experience would test her in a different way. The morning had been about learning the basics and handling responsibility, but now it felt like it was time to show that she had truly absorbed the lessons. The air in the rifle bay smelled of oil and metal, a scent that now felt familiar and even motivating. The SEAL was already at his station, methodically checking rifles and organizing his tools. When he noticed Emma approaching, he gave a subtle nod. It wasn't a casual gesture. It was an acknowledgement of her progress, a silent challenge to continue performing well. Emma felt a surge of confidence but also a renewed focus. She reminded herself that respect in this environment was earned through consistent, careful action. Today she wanted to prove she could maintain the standard. "Ready?" the SEAL asked quietly. His voice was calm, firm, and carried the weight of experience. Emma nodded. She had been ready all along, but hearing the word out loud made it real. This was no longer just practice or observation. This was a moment to demonstrate that she had grown, that she could handle responsibility under pressure. He placed another rifle in her hands, slightly heavier and more complex than the one she had handled before. Emma took it carefully, feeling the balance in her hands and the weight of expectation. Her initial nervousness returned for a brief moment, but she quickly centered herself. She remembered all the steps she had learned: disassemble, inspect, clean, reassemble, and double-check. This was her chance to apply everything at once. Emma began with the chamber, working methodically and with precision. She inspected each part, wiped away residue, and oiled the surfaces lightly but thoroughly. She worked carefully on the barrel, paying attention to every detail. Her hands were steady, her movements smooth. The SEAL observed closely but did not intervene. Emma felt the quiet pressure of his gaze and realized that this was a test of focus as much as skill. She couldn't rush. She had to be methodical. A small challenge arose when she reached the trigger mechanism. A tiny piece seemed misaligned, and for a moment she felt doubt creeping in. Her hands paused, hovering over the component. She took a deep breath and carefully examined it, thinking through the steps the SEAL had shown her earlier. Slowly, deliberately, she adjusted the part. It clicked into place, secure and precise. Relief washed over her, but she didn't stop. She continued, understanding that completing the task perfectly required constant attention until the very end. As she worked, Emma noticed that her confidence was growing. The fear she had felt when first holding a rifle in the SEAL's presence had transformed into concentration and focus. Each motion now felt purposeful, and each decision carried clarity. She realized that trust once given could inspire courage. The SEAL had trusted her before, and that trust had allowed her to rise to the challenge. The rhythm of the rifle bay was familiar now. The clinking of metal, the soft brush of cloths, and the quiet movement of soldiers created an environment of disciplined energy. Emma felt connected to it. She was part of a larger process, one where every action mattered and where responsibility was shared. This realization made her work more meaningful, more engaging. She cleaned the barrel one more time, polished the stock, and inspected every component carefully. When she reached the final step of reassembly, Emma paused to double-check her work. Every piece was in place, every part functioning correctly. She realized that this was more than just completing a task. It was a demonstration of reliability, skill, and attention to detail. She had earned the right to feel proud. Carefully, she placed the rifle on the bench, standing back and awaiting the SEAL's evaluation. He walked toward the rifle slowly, his eyes scanning every part with methodical precision. Emma held her breath, remembering the initial nerves she had felt when he first placed a weapon in her hands. Now she felt composed, confident, and ready. The SEAL examined the rifle, checking the chamber, the barrel, the trigger mechanism, and the stock. After a few tense moments, he looked at Emma and nodded. This time it was a nod of approval, not just acknowledgement. It carried weight, meaning that she had performed exceptionally. "Excellent work," he said simply. His voice was calm, but Emma could feel the significance of the words. In the rifle bay, praise was rare and meaningful. It was earned through skill, focus, and respect for the process. Emma's heart lifted. She had not only completed the task, but had done so with precision and confidence. The trust placed in her had been validated, and she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Other soldiers, who had been quietly observing, nodded their heads in subtle acknowledgement. Some offered brief smiles or small gestures of approval. Emma realized that she had earned their respect, not through words but through action. The SEAL stepped closer and spoke again, offering a few short but powerful lessons about responsibility, discipline, and trust. He emphasized that every role, civilian or military, was important, and that excellence could be demonstrated in every task, no matter how small it seemed. Emma listened carefully, absorbing every word. She understood that her experience in the rifle bay was not just about learning to handle weapons, but about developing focus, composure, and self-confidence. She realized that challenges, when faced with careful attention and determination, could become opportunities for growth. The SEAL's trust had pushed her to perform beyond what she thought possible, and that was a lesson she would carry forward in every aspect of life. As she finished cleaning up her workstation and returning tools to their proper places, Emma felt a sense of pride and satisfaction. She had learned more than just rifle maintenance. She had learned patience, responsibility, and the value of quiet trust. She glanced at the SEAL one last time, who offered a brief smile, a rare gesture of approval and encouragement. The rifle bay, once intimidating and overwhelming, now felt like a place of accomplishment and learning. Emma realized that she had grown significantly in confidence and skill. She knew that this experience would stay with her, a reminder that trust could inspire courage, and responsibility could lead to personal growth. She had faced her fear, learned from it, and emerged stronger and more capable. As she left the rifle bay that day, Emma walked with a new sense of purpose. She understood that challenges were not obstacles to fear, but opportunities to demonstrate capability and growth. The lessons she had learned from the SEAL, and from the experience itself, were more than practical skills. They were life lessons about trust, focus, and the power of believing in oneself. She took a deep breath, feeling a quiet pride that came from true accomplishment. Emma knew that the day had changed her. She was no longer the nervous newcomer who hesitated at the sight of a rifle. She had proven herself, earned respect, and discovered strength she had not known existed. The rifle bay had become a place of transformation, and Emma walked away ready to face whatever challenges might come next, confident in her abilities and inspired by the trust that had been placed in her.